The Galactic Council had made their decision with cold precision. Kepler 442c, the most inhospitable prison world in their jurisdiction, would be humanity's new home. The vote was unanimous among the 12 species. Humans were too unpredictable, too violent, too chaotic to remain among civilized worlds. Ambassador Zethkri of the Valorian Empire addressed the assembly with righteous satisfaction. Let the Death World claim them as it has claimed every other species we've sent there. Perhaps 50 cycles of acid rain, crystalline storms, and predators the size of starships will teach them humility. The transport ships departed 3 months later, carrying 50,000 humans to what the Council believed would be their extinction. The journey took 2 years, and by the time they arrived at Kepler 442c, the prisoners had already begun to organize themselves in ways that would have terrified their captors. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the viewport of the lead transport, watching the angry red planet grow larger. Behind her, the makeshift council of human survivors, scientists, engineers, soldiers, teachers, farmers, even former criminals, had spent the voyage planning not for survival, but for conquest. Atmospheric composition is brutal, reported Dr. James Chen, their lead xenobiologist. Sulfuric compounds in the air, temperatures that swing from freezing to boiling within hours, and preliminary scans show massive predatory life forms. Sounds like Tuesday back on Earth during the resource wars, muttered Sergeant Maria Santos, cleaning her plasma rifle. At least here we won't have politicians breathing down our necks. The first landing was chaos. The moment the transport doors opened, they were assaulted by howling winds that could strip paint from metal. The air burned their throats even through filtration systems. 3 massive insectoid creatures, each the size of a building, immediately attacked the landing site. Any other species would have retreated. Humans charged. Santos led the first wave, her squad moving with practiced coordination. They'd analyzed the creatures' movement patterns during the approach, identified weak points in their exoskeletons, and developed tactics specifically for this moment. Within 20 minutes, they had brought down all 3 predators. "Well," said Captain Vasquez, stepping over a creature's severed limb, "dinner's served." The first year was hell. The acid rains dissolved their initial shelters. Crystalline, storms that moved faster than hurricanes shredded their equipment. Massive underground predators emerged without warning. Volcanic activity rendered entire regions uninhabitable overnight. But humans had one advantage the Galactic Council had, never considered. They were already from a death world. Earth had forged humanity in a crucible of ice ages, meteor impacts, supervolcano eruptions, and countless mass extinctions. Every human carried the DNA of survivors, creatures who had crawled out of primordial oceans, survived the dinosaurs, endured plagues, and thrived in environments that would kill most galactic species within hours. Dr. Chen's team began studying the local ecosystem with hungry fascination. Where other species saw only death, they saw opportunity. The acid rain? Perfect for their newly developed chemical processing plants. The crystalline storms? An abundant source of rare minerals. The massive predators? Protein sources and materials for tools and weapons. Engineer Yuki Tanaka led teams that built not just shelters, but underground cities connected by networks of tunnels. They learned to predict and harness the volcanic activity for geothermal power. They domesticated smaller predator species, turning them into hunting companions and guards. "You know what this planet reminds me of?" Vasquez said during their second winter, watching her people work in organized teams to expand their main settlement. Home. By the 3rd year, they weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Human settlements dotted the planet's surface. They had established farming operations using modified earth crops that actually grew better in the harsh conditions. Their population had grown to over 60,000 as families adapted and children were born who knew no other world. The native apex predators had learned to avoid human settlements. Those too aggressive or territorial had been hunted to near extinction by human teams who treated 6-ton monsters like weekend hunting trips. Then the Galactic Council made their second mistake. They sent a monitoring probe. Captain Vasquez, now calling herself governor, received the transmission in her office, a vast chamber carved from a crystalline cave system that had once housed creatures they now used as livestock. Probe 7743 to Galactic Council. Kepler 442c status report. Unknown energy signatures detected planet-wide. Large-scale construction identified. Recommend immediate investigation. Vasquez smiled, her weathered face bearing scars from a dozen encounters with the planet's former apex predators. Around her, holographic displays showed the thriving human civilization they had built. Manufacturing centers, starship construction facilities, military training grounds, universities where their children learned to see this hell world as paradise. "Maria," she called to her old friend, now General Santos, "how long until our fleet is ready?" "The first wave of ships can launch in 6 months," Santos replied. 40 vessels, all designed specifically for this environment. Our pilots have been training in conditions that would kill most galactic species. And our population? Approaching 100,000. Third-generation children show remarkable adaptation. They're stronger, faster, more resilient than even their parents. Vasquez nodded. The children born on Kepler 442c didn't just survive the planet, they dominated it. They could breathe the sulfuric air for short periods. They moved through crystalline storms like athletes. They hunted the native predators for sport. 6 months later, the first human ships launched from Kepler 442c. They weren't escape pods or desperate refugee vessels. They were warships, built from crystalline storm materials and powered by harnessed volcanic energy. They carried crews who considered the vacuum of space a pleasant relief from their home environment. The Galactic Council's monitoring stations went silent one by one. Ambassador Zethkri received the final transmission while in session at the council chambers. The image that appeared on their screens showed Captain Vasquez, now wearing armor, forged from the scales of creatures that had once ruled her world. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had turned hell into home. "Thank you for the gift of Kepler 442c. We've made some improvements." Behind her, the view showed gleaming human cities rising, from crystalline canyons, starships launching from volcanic forges, and children playing games that would give galactic marines nightmares. "We're ready to return the favor," Vasquez continued. "We'll be visiting each of your worlds soon. Don't worry, we're bringing gifts." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, 12 species contemplated the terrible truth. They hadn't sent humans to a death world. They had sent death to a world, and it had made it stronger. 3 days later, human ships appeared in orbit around Valor Prime. They had come not as refugees or prisoners, but as conquerors. The Death World had given them a new king, and her name was humanity.